Should be good now. Should be good now. I have too many things. Got like 5 cameras now and all the microphones and things. I'm like, where's my sound coming from? Should be good now. I have too many. Alright, excellent. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to today's board game design stream. So this is a new show that I've been working on. The idea is starting from scratch, completely blank. My mind is blank. I have no ideas that I'm going from. I have my notebook over here with my sketching tools. The idea is to start from a word or a concept, do some mind mapping, really blow out the ideas and try to come up with something really unique and creative, and from the original concepts to build out from there and show how any idea can turn into a board game or into a digital game. Paper prototyping is also really good if you're into digital game creation. Some of the ideas that we've had from recent streams was, what did I start with? I started with the word pewter and worked out there to eventually create, I got to pottery wheels and the idea of spells, put it all together to come up with this game idea for helpful sprites that use this special resource distribution system of interlocking wheels to get the components they need to make very silly spells like, I am a helpful sprite and I will make it so that your shoelaces are never untied. So that one's really fun. Last week we had a special stream from Gamma and we're playing around with the idea of emojis and nonverbal, like visual communication. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen today. If anybody would like to pitch a starting concept, that's always welcome, because I want to make it absolutely clear that I have nothing that I'm working from here. So I'm not a ringer here where I like spend all the time preparing, getting all these ideas ready to make a game from. I also got this fancy new marker, so I'm excited to see this fancy, let me get it here, Copic. Get it in the camera. Get it. The camera's reversed. I forget. So, yeah, there we go. I got a Copic sketch marker. Helped to make my sketch a little more. I also went to CVS and got some of these like double-sided ink markers that are huge. so we should get some fun design stuff going on there. All right. Oh my gosh, this marker is like the fanciest thing. I haven't used Copics in years, so just the soft tip of it. I'm a little scared, actually. I don't want to... I'm concerned about destroying this poor, beautiful marker. Well, fancy is a word, so unless I have any other suggestions, I'm going to go ahead and start mind mapping around that. All right, so let's get it down here in the center. Nice and bold. I want to make sure that all the stuff I'm doing shows up nicely on camera here. So we have the word fancy. Alright, so if you haven't mind mapped before, it's a special design brainstorming technique that's meant to be a little more flowing and flexible than traditional brainstorm. Traditional brainstorm, you just put all the things, list items one at a time in a straight list, and it's a great way for like one concept to trigger another, but you're usually only focusing on the couple of things that just happened. It can be hard to go back to the beginning. So the nice thing about a mind map is we're going out from the center, so it's easy to kind of go in, come back out, explore the reaches, and then come back to the central idea. It's a really cool way to break out of a static mold and come up with some really creative things. So what do we think of when we think of the word fancy? My brain goes in weird directions. So the first thing I'm thinking of is feast, like the fancy feast cat food that's in all of those commercials. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Cat food. Cat food connect to cats. I don't necessarily want to to go straight to cats because I feel like I'm already tuned into making games about cats, but it's there. It's on the page. All right, we here have from Drawn Onward, Fancy Pants. I love Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants. All right, Fancy Pants. Right. I mean, what could be better? Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants being like your pants themselves are actually fancy. And also, like, if someone is too fancy, perhaps, oh, you're a fancy pants. I'm going to write pretentious here. I don't personally have anything against fancy pants, but I like this idea of, like, pretentious pants. And then, like, rhinestones. So this idea of your particularly fancy pants where you're just literally gem encrusted. Ooh, I like that. Gem encrusted. What do we have here? Hat, clothes, attire. Fancy. I'm gonna leave pants as its own thing and have over here attire, get a hat in there. Clothes. So what do we think of when I think of a fancy, particularly fancy hat? I think of like a top hat. And when I think of a top hat, I think of a 19th century. I'm gonna come down here, get some extra space. Yeah, you're a cat. You're very helpful. 19th century villain. It's coming off the page a little bit, but it's down there. All right, pretentious. Pretentious kind of ties into that as well. Pretentious and the villain. I like where this is going. This is excellent. We got a monocle. And we have the villain down here. So this idea of this person or this villain. Villain's a little judgy, right? I don't know if I want to go too judgy right away, but we got this idea of a gem encrusted rhinestones, top hat, monocle. What is cane, right? What is that thing where you have like the diamond on the walking stick? So I'm gonna put that down here. Cane. We're not even talking about games anymore. Like at this point, we're just describing all of the things you think of cane walking stick when you think about a villain. Ooh, dapper. I like dapper. Pretentious. Dapper. So this idea of fanciness and pretentiousness, having nice things, and being like, oh, I like to dress nicely, and how conceptually, you know, sometimes in a lot of media that we consume, oh, someone who dresses too fancy, either, you know, they can be like a very fashionable person, or it could be someone who, like a lot of these rich villains, right, will have this very pretentious style to them, and a lot of very like solid, noticeable iconography. I like that. Pretentious, I would say like fashion iconography. And this idea of, you know, what do the clothes we wear mean? I'm getting super deep with this mind mapping here. What do clothes mean? All right. This is interesting. We're getting very much from the fancy. You know, fancy can be a million things. Like on one side we have the cat food here. On the other side we have this like very deep, emotionally complex picture of, you know, what are the clothes we wear? What is the psychographic analysis that we can do over here? All right. Do I want to do more into cat food? Cats. Cat food comes in a tin. Tin, metal. I like this concept here. I think there's definitely something here, but I want to keep going for all the different areas that I have and see if there's anything else we could piece together here. Clothes as meaning, buying clothes. And I think with clothes as meaning makes me think of like a role-playing game. All right, cool. Still on camera here. Role-playing game, or a lot of just games in general with characters. And especially nowadays, like when you're creating your character, you're dressing your character, you're fighting things, you're choosing your equipment, and a lot of that is very personal choices. Like you're not just oh, I'll wear whatever. You know, you're in World of Warcraft, you're transmogrifying your clothes to give you a very particular look, because your look is meaning, clothes is meaning. Clothes are a status symbol, indication of class. Clothes literally giving people abilities. So we have, let's have some good stuff here. I'm going to switch over. So here I have my notes that I'm taking with a brainstorm here, but I'm also going to be writing some of this stuff down. Clothes as meaning, clothes giving abilities, status symbols. Interesting. Clothes as status. Status as success / points. So right here we're getting into a little bit of this idea of moving towards, you know, what is a point or what is a goal. So when I'm doing these game design things, you can go in a couple of different directions, like what is an experience that you're trying to capture with this, or what is something mechanical. You know, if you're going down the mechanical direction, so, you know, maybe it's in this world where I collect all the different clothes and I get status points from the thing, and at the end of the game I total up all my status. Or going in a different direction, are we trying to capture this experience of what does it mean to try on different outfits, try on different clothes? Do I know what I'm trying to be or what I'm trying to project? Or does each thing that I try, is it revealed? You know, is it kind of like a possessed or enchanted equipment where I don't actually know what happens until I put it on? I kind of like that. All right. Don't know what happens until I put it on. And maybe there's this concept of identification of items. Like I'm thinking Diablo and our favorite Diablo, our favorite Deckard Cain. Back in the original Diablo, where you didn't have any scroll of it, you didn't just click on the thing. Back in my day, you had to go all the way back there, bring it to Deckard Cain, and wait for him to look at it in order to know it's like, oh, this is just a dumb thing, or like, oh, this is the raging sword of amazing power. Alright, sidebar. Identification of items. So here's where I like to have my pad here too for this kind of sketch idea. Person. I've been playing with character cards too lately, as well as looking at the new Killjoy game. I think it was Glamazons and the Curse of the Metal Bikini. So they had some really cool color forms, stickers, like vinyl stickers with outfits on them that you could literally just apply to the thing. So it's like, here's your character, and all of a sudden they have the meat cloak of tastiness. This is actually a cursed item that makes you incredibly appealing to monsters who want to eat you. So you would put this on and discover like, oh wait, I thought maybe this was an invisibility cloak, but really it's a cloak of tastiness. And now I'm in the forest and everything that I come across is incredibly attracted to the consumption of my body. Right, and a hat of pointiness. Not useful. So we talked in the beginning about this idea of fancy clothes and being attracted to, you know, I want to wear this because it's something that speaks to me. I like the fashion style of it, the fashion statement, and then bumping up against this idea of, oh, but then it has hidden abilities. So it's like this gem-encrusted sword looks like something really cool that I want to fight with, but I mostly like it because it looks really cool, right? And then you're grabbing the coolest items, like, oh, this purple cloak of Sparkle Dragon looks really cool, but maybe I put it on and it's got kind of a bad or negative effect. So that could be, and that's playing around a lot with playing with dichotomy. I move this up a little bit. With dichotomy and subversion of expectations, which I really like in games. It's like, oh, you thought that we were going to go in this one direction, we're actually going in this completely different direction. That's a fun thing to do design-wise. Okay, so we got some fun stuff here. Right now we're going in a direction of having characters sketch out. Yeah, I got my person here. There's gonna be a quick stick figure. This person's name is George. It's a good name. George has eyes and a mouth. Alright, George is walking along. So now we're thinking about, you know, so we're getting this concept of these clothes. How will we acquire these items? Ooh, Mystic Veil. I do like Mystic Veil. So Mystic Veil, if you haven't played it, it's a game with see-through cards. Gloom is another great one for this. So you actually layer the things on top and you can see certain things are covered up or revealed depending on how you lay the cards. So I was having the idea of I'm gonna draw with this giant marker. Ooh, that's very nice. That's perfect. So I'm having this idea of you like literally apply something. So you apply a cloak to your character, maybe throw a hat on there. I'm gonna say gloves. Throw on some gloves. As individual components. Another mechanical direction you could go in is having individual cards and have this concept of layering them. So on the bottom down here, we have our kind of see-through stick figure and with additional see-through cards. This one could have a shirt on it. And this, each individual card could be more pieces of clothing that layer on top. And what's cool about especially the Gloom cards is on the, like on your original character, you would have like a, you know, a 5 in this upper corner, and then like a 6. So maybe like Constitution or we'll just say like Power and Toughness to keep it simple now. So parts for these really cool see-through cards, you have parts of it being transparent and parts of it occluding the cards underneath it. So like you would still be able to look through and see the parts of your character's body, like there's the head, there's the feet, but these original numbers would be covered up. I'll get a close-up diagram of what this would look at like. So up here you have your circle, you have your 5 in there. But with the next card that goes above it, you would have this be a 6. And unlike the rest of the transparent card, this part of the card is not see-through. So the 6 completely covers up the 5, and now you've created an upgrade for your character just based on the cards and the way you lay them over. And some cards will have different ones in different spaces, so you might have negative effects on certain cards. So depending on how you layer the cards. How you layer gives different effects. One important thing when you're talking about interaction design, game design in particular, is when do the interesting choices happen? So which parts of this is the player making choices? Are those interesting choices for them to make? Are they making arbitrary choices that don't really affect the gameplay? But right here we're starting to visualize a field. And we don't know yet if it's going to be, you're going to get the cards, just draw them from a pile. They're going to be see-through, so that's going to be a little interesting because you're going to be able to look through and see information on the card. Are they in a market? Are they in supplies, like a Dominion style? You have some other way to randomize the acquisition of these cards, and just have the cards available in piles to be able to take. Can you see all the information on the cards to know how you're going to layer these things? So we were talking a little bit about mechanically the layering of these cards, but I want to come back and say like, okay, so I've gone out, maybe I'm fighting some creatures like Monster Hunter, getting their pieces back, maybe I'm doing some farming, maybe I'm just going to a store. I kind of like the idea of that, like a bargain quest, you know, just going into the store, getting your stuff, gearing up. So yeah, I've gone to the store, I'll layer these cards, you know, I have a few things going on here, but then on the top mechanical level, I've done some of the actions of the games, acquired some things. We'll say that now I have an attack of 7, so I can do 7 damage to a creature. I have a toughness of 8, so I can take 8 damage before I die. And then I have like a cunning of 5. So attack, health, and cunning. Draw on my shirts. Say I have like, maybe I don't have any pants yet. I'm pantsless. This yellow's not going to show up great, but I have like little yellow shoes. They're really good, and like a big pink tunic here. Just like big old, very like drapey, flowy thing. So yeah, just come in. Oh yeah, there we go. Just this big old pink tunic. They can have cool names too. Tunic of Pink Dreams. Yellow Booties. Craft decks, press a roll and write like Sunflower Valley, where you draw into the character as you acquire new items and see your person become more and more weighed upon by their clothes, which cannot be erased. Ooh, yeah. More clothes is bad. That might betray expectations. So part of this, one thing that I like to point out when doing designs like this is a lot of the things, especially if you're an experienced game designer, if you've played a lot of games, you might make a lot of decisions that just feel really natural, but a lot of those are preconceptions and stereotypes. This is why I like to do the mind mapping, and this is why even for this phase of a game, it's like, hey, we've kind of made a game right here, right? Like, you got these stacked cards, going out and getting up cool gear to make my fighter attack things, but why is it a fighter? Like, why is it attack and health and cunning? You know, why isn't it, oh, this person's going to be really good at gathering things, or this person is going to dress up for a date, or like a really emotional negotiation, or maybe it's a political thing. So anytime when you start to say like, oh yeah, I'm making this thing and it goes like really easily and quickly in a certain direction, that can actually be, it can feel really good, like things are really flowing, but I like to stop at different points and shake things up. So like Drawn Onward here is mentioning, hey, what if it isn't this stacking components thing at all, but what if it's a roll and write, like Sunflower Valley? And I really like this concept. I've thought sometimes in the past about doing this clear cards stacking thing. Components-wise, it's definitely not as easy or accessible of a game to make as something that's just regular cards. That shouldn't be a limiting factor too early on. If you're too worried about like, oh, how am I going to produce this? I don't think you're going to make as good of a game as if you just let the ideas flow. But important part of the stream is pushing out new ideas. So let's go in a new direction. Let's rewind, start from scratch. All right, instead of these cards that we have going on here, what if we have a clothes acquisition game, roll and write, and you have your character here. Again, my fancy stick figure, my fancy happy stick figure. Oh, it's pretty cute. It's got a nice little smile on it. And we have our gear slots here. So we got head, hands, shirt, pants. I like this idea too for, I love in roll and writes, man, starting the beginning, like the most simple accessible roll and writes, you have write numbers, and we can all write numbers. And then you get to something like Railroad Ink, and it's, okay, drawing your railroads. And that's when you start to separate the drawers from the non-drawers. People get very stressed out about making their railroads look like really cool, really pretty. Now I'm asking you to draw like a hat or a shirt. I'm sure it will all come down to symbols to keep it easy for people. But I kind of like this, just pushing people's boundaries a little bit more. It's like, okay, now draw a hat. Game falls apart right there. It's like, I thought this game was going to be really fun, but they wanted me to draw a hat, and I can't draw a hat, and now I can't play this game anymore. It's sad. Alright, so we got our head, hands, torso, and pants. I guess that would be legs if we're doing body parts. So collection, I'm going to say right here, market, because that makes sense with this idea of buying clothes. So in general, I think there's a lot of combat games, both like digitally for sure, and even within tabletop, there's a lot of stuff where you're like getting up abilities and fighting. I think there's still space to be explored there, but this idea, especially we were talking about earlier, of status and wearing clothes, and you know, like you put on the coolest clothes and you get a lot of status, but then maybe you push your luck. I mean, I love push your luck. So this idea that you're trying to get the coolest outfit and show up everybody, but maybe you go too far. So, you know, you got your hat, you got some necklaces on, maybe this like really cool flowing kimono thing. But then you pair it with the, what are those pants? We'll say like hot pants. And then you pair it with hot pants, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh no, your outfit there it's not quite doing it. Like, without the hot pants, if you just put some skinny jeans or something on there, then that would have been cool, but hot pants totally destroyed my fashion vision. Cool. So we have a market here, clothes market. So that's a couple. So we're talking, coming back to some of our original concepts. We have this idea of clothing as status from our original mind mapping fancy brainstorm. And we can think about it, like, in what situations are clothing status? Like, instantly, two things come to mind. Modern day fashion, keeping it very pop culture, play around with a lot of fun stuff. Or maybe we're doing something in the, again, we had come up with top hats in our mind mapping brainstorm. So maybe we're doing like a 19th century, or like, oh man, when was fashion really cool? Like a 16th century with like brocade cloaks and like very fancy jewelry and epaulettes, I think is a word, of like shoulder pads. Clothing as status. So I like these two directions of modern pop culture, and then on the other side, historical fashion, because there's some really cool things you can dig into with and a lot of research that's been done with historical fashion, and a lot of people who specifically like get really into that, so that could be pretty fun. Perhaps each piece of clothing has a victory point number and another number associated with pretentiousness. At the end of each round, when players go to their party, I like that. When players go to their party, threshold is revealed for exactly how pretentious a player can be. If they go over that limit, they get fewer or no points for their clothes. Excellent. So what we're starting to come up with here is we have an idea of a progression for a game. So in the beginning, had this idea of, okay, people are acquiring clothes, they're putting on the clothes, potentially have certain effects, go to the store, shop, go to the market, as a gameplay loop. So that's the first loop in the game, right? So you're going to get your stuff, you're going to put it on your character, and then what happens? Like, at that point, your decisions that you've made in this round of the game should trigger, have a threshold where something happens, where your decisions that you've made are resolved in some way, so you can progress to the next loop. I like this idea. Characters acquire clothes. So we were talking about a roll and write. So it could be on dice. But I like the idea of the a welcome to with the actual cards that you're flipping, because for this idea of this fashion game, I think something that's going to be really compelling for the experience is having the actual clothes and the actual fashion on cards. So flip and write with really just beautiful fashion art and just having a really strong visual style for the cards. And production wise, this could be a little expensive, a little bit tricky, but I kind of want just like so many different pieces of clothing and just unique art for everything. We can get like expansion clothing and stuff. So clothing has, what is it, like a VP, so it has a fanciness VP or victory points score. So that's what you, something that you want to maximize. And then also a pretentiousness score that might exceed a threshold that is future revealed. Push your luck. So you might go for broke, right? And say that, I'm just going to take on all the pretentiousness. Ooh, maybe the characters have different abilities, make it a little asymmetrical. So your people, like maybe somebody... There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with asymmetrical player powers with someone. For example, they want to just always push their pretentiousness, and maybe they actually get a certain number of points for going past the pretentiousness threshold, and somebody else is like really risk averse and they get like a really bad punishment for going past the pretentiousness score. Okay, so the right element is a character sheet where you draw the clothes. This is probably really terrible, but I like the idea of an art element. Maybe a judge element. For drawing the clothes items. This is probably terrible, but I like it specifically for leaning into the idea that people are going to, if, you know, you could just like have very simple iconography for drawing which of the clothes items are on your character. But if you really lean into a lot of people's natural apprehension around drawing publicly, it's a funny thing a lot of people get really stressed out about. So if you lean into some of that tension, it could be fun to have this secondary game where you get stressed out about drawing, or people are judging your drawing abilities. So I'm going to write that down as drawing public apprehension. I'm going to asterisk that. That's kind of like a side idea for what we're doing right now. Alright, so let's get in here with a new character sheet. So we've got some of the word ideas of the things that we're thinking. I like to bring it back to drawing out, again, where we are with our creation. Make a big old character sheet here. You have your character. They're all going to be different stylish people wearing like the shifts. Wearing a shift or underwear or whatever. It could be fun. You can have some fun with just the way that you create these characters. And let's say like 5 or 6. Let's say they're gonna have 6 different things going on here. They have headwear, jewelry. What was that? That was 5. We need one more. Jewelry, one more box. Jewelry / accessories, torso, pants, shoes, and hands. Hands are down by the butt for some reason. That's where we at with that. And let's just say for now, just because I've played the game before, this idea of a welcome to 3 card. Actually, I was gonna say 3 cards, maybe like 4 or 5. So players +1, the draft idea, some way that you're gonna be acquiring these clothes. So right now what's most exciting to me about this game is like we have the roll and write. You're going to be drawing the clothes items that you have for your characters. They're going to get certain scores at the end of each round at the event, which is a party. All these characters going to a lot of parties, have to dress up for the parties that they're going to, they'll have to acquire the clothes, but there's so many ways that you can acquire items in the game. You can have a draft, you can have a market with things that are purchasable, you can have a market, like a randomized market like Ascension, or you can have a static market like Dominion. You can have cards, hands of cards, things be dealt out to characters. I don't hate the hands aspect. So market or purchasing is kind of a known quantity in games where it is something that you can innovate on, but for this, like, we're more excited about this roll and write element that we're innovating on here. So I'm not going to worry too much. I'm going to black box that and say, like, hey, here is an acquisition space, and we will worry about that later, about how we get them. All right, so you get the stuff. I'm going to make a quick note here about the core game loop that we have so far. Get stuff and equip. Reveal, pretentiousness, threshold. Ooh, I like the idea of it being tied into, I'm going to cross that out and actually say reveal event / party. Actually, I'm still churning through these ideas. So I like the idea of, ooh, you have some information at the beginning of the round. All right, so 0, at the 0 level, reveal event. So you have a flavor to it, right? It's like, oh, we're going to a museum opening, or we're going to an art gallery, or we're going to the tie-ins, we're going to the opening of this new Dinosaur Island park. Wow, that's super exciting. We're flying out there with helicopters. So we have an idea of the event, partial information. Get our stuff. Reveal the criteria of event. So things like pretentiousness. And maybe there's something that happens, you know, maybe they give out swag bags at the event. Maybe there's someone who's like stealing jewelry, like a heist or something. So all people's jewelry go away. I like that. Criteria event, pretentiousness, something happens. Heist. Swag bag. And then the event happens and gets points. Alright, theme definitely sounds really different and appealing to a wide audience. Yeah, that's one of my the thing that excites me about this style of game design, because I come up with ideas of things just like, oh, that would be a cool game, talking with people. But this exercise is great. It's been really great for me. I think it could be really great for other designers as well. It's easy to kind of get stuck in a design rut or come up with something that's like, oh, is this so creative? Is this a direction? Is this something that I'm really excited about working on? I think working on stuff that's outside of the bounds that you normally work on, even if this, like, I don't know if this is going to become a finished game or this is going to become a product, but just working through the design ideas of it and pulling everything together, it's a really good exercise. It can even help to trigger if you're stuck on a design that you're working on. It can get the juices flowing, and even if you don't finish this very silly games that tend to come out of this exercise, you can still get the ideas flowing on your main game design idea. Be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about what if there was a roll and write element to it, or I'm really hung up on the market here, but this idea came out of this exercise. Something is like, oh, it's a really clean way to deal with my market design issue. Yes. Event venues. I'm going to take some notes over here. Write an element. This character sheet where you draw the clothes. different events / venues. What are we going to call this non-infringing? Dinosaur Island. Non-infringing opening of a dinosaur park. Or we could cross-promote partnership with people. Art gallery. Just like a business launch. Different events, venues. And then there's stuff that happens at the events. Heist. Get a swag bag. So you might have the opportunity to add to your outfit, or you might have to remove things from your outfit. Market might be draftable cards or dice, or based on cards or dice to show availability. Yes. Successive parties. So we talked about the core gameplay loop of this. Reveal an event, get a bunch of clothing to go to the event, reveal some additional information about the event, and then something happens. So it's a 4-element core gameplay loop. Very solid. Probably go through that 3 or 4 times to make the full loop of the game, to make sure you're getting a balance over there. Tying the different game loops together could be really interesting. So Drawn Onward here had mentioned an idea of successive parties. So this is an idea too. So we talked about the like one loop is like, okay, and then end of the party, what does the next round look like? Do I get to keep all my clothing items? Do I get to keep some of them? Do I get benefits or punishments from keeping items from round to round? I'll just mark that down as, do I keep my stuff? And so over here we have this concept of either a punishment of that or a benefit of keeping your things. Like maybe you only have a certain amount of money to spend. We haven't talked about money or currency or exactly how that's going to be generated, but it's a potential way to give a little bit more interesting control over what you're purchasing to wear from round to round. So you have a certain amount of money, so it behooves you to keep some of your stuff. Behooves, that's a funny word. Behooves you to keep some of your stuff, but if we're coming back to the theme of this game, it's one thing that's really nice about making very strongly thematic games is I can think through about what this thing is in real life. So I know in real life, people go to parties, people get dressed up for them, people get judged by wearing the same outfit for party to party or the same outfit as someone else. So that could be really fun. So consequences, choices and consequences, really good to keep in mind for game design. Consequences of similar outfits. Say event to event, and also potentially person to person. All right, let's see. We got about 10 minutes left here before I finish up the stream. I'm doing a super fun thing for the University of Washington game design program where I'm helping out some students with their game design pitches. Super excited about that. Means the stream is going to be a little bit shorter today, so I want to make sure we get everything tied up here. All right. Come back to my doc and talk about the core gameplay loop. For this ideation, how you decide to catalog everything that you're working on really depends on what your goals are for things. As an exercise and something that's just throwaway to get your brain juices flowing, I think it can be really great just putting it down in a notebook, not worrying too much about having to come back to it. Maybe make a note in your Trello board or wherever you store your game design ideas, like, hey, I came up with this kind of cool idea for this clothing pretentiousness outfit game. if you are interested in coming back and developing a game further, it can be really useful for me to write these things down in digital format. So I have all my notes there. I have at the beginning of a rule set, which is really cool. Because if I want to pitch the game to someone or send a blind play test, the earlier I have this core rule set down, the better for me as a designer. So I'm going to write my core gameplay loop, reveal an event with partial information, dress your characters, I'm going to say acquire from market, question mark, dice. You dress your characters, they go to the party within this additional event. Information is revealed, such as pretentiousness threshold. Pretentiousness threshold. Now I just really want to make a game that has in it, in the rulebook, pretentiousness threshold. I think it's such a great concept conceptually. And it's something that is very evocative, right? It's like, oh, obviously I put on this leopard print full-length gown and 3 hats, if that's even a possibility. Like, obviously I've blown way past the pretentiousness threshold. Something happens, like a heist or a swag bag, that makes players add or remove clothing items. This is a universal thing. It adds a little bit to the randomness, and I like it tends to be a little bit less in the style of a Euro game where you have complete control over everything, and more in this idea of like, hey, some things are going to happen, some things are going to change. I need to be aware that my perfect engine here is not going to potentially be around forever. And I like the extra dimensions of creative thinking that embodies in a game. All right, go to the party. And after the party, keep or sell items. So when you're going to the party, you're getting points, losing points for pretentiousness, and maybe getting money. I'm still not sold on whether or not I want to add an extra layer of complexity for having a currency in this game. And this is something that will come out very easily in testing. Like, what is the fun part of this game? Getting the items, dressing up your character is going to be super fun. Going to the parties, checking your score, having the reveal of that pretentiousness threshold is going to be really fun. Is it going to be fun to balance my money, find ways to generate money, lose money? Potentially. I'll put that in there as a maybe right now. After the party, keep or sell items. Unequip items. And then we go back and do the loop over again. Reveal an event, dress your characters, go to the party, so on or so forth. Do it 3 or 4 times. Yeah, thank you, Drawn Onward. It was super helpful to have you in here. I think that we came up with a really cool thing. Do it. Do it 3 or 4 times, and then start over. And then win. And then win. I've been doing these emoji pitches on Twitter, and it's become difficult to come back to serious, to come back again to serious game design, as opposed to like throw a flower, eat your hat, do it 3 or 4 times, win. Alright, so let me flip back to our character sheet that we have over here. in summary, started off an hour ago with our mind map. Started with the word here, fancy, did some brainstorming from that original concept, went off into cats, as these things often do, feast, cat food, but then quickly got into attire, pretentiousness, top hats. This is just kind of where our mind went with the brainstorming. From the concept of wearing pretentious clothes, we swiftly traveled through the different ways that you could get clothes onto your characters. For a little while, we were discussing this idea of a Mystic Veil type creation where you stack the cards. Maybe the characters were fighting against each other. They had attack and defense. But after that, we branched off into a completely new direction of a roll and write idea where you're dressing up your characters based on either true roll and write with dice, or you're going to have a market of like a flip and write where you have really cool cards that are coming out, really great art. You're putting on these clothes, and instead of fighting, you're going to a party trying to show up the other party guests with your fanciness, but not be seen as too pretentious by everyone else who's at the party, or else you're going to lose points. The parties are all held at different venues. Really cool events are happening. There's some randomness involved in either adding items to your outfit that might push you over the pretentiousness threshold, or getting a chance to remove an item that might get you under that pretentiousness threshold. Scoring up your points for the round, doing it a few times, and having a lot of fun doing it. Drawn Onward has definitely been our champion for the ideation today, coming up with some great ideas. And I think it's a great example of how you can riff off with a person back and forth, build ideas, not get too tied down, not get too attached to any concept. I talk to a lot of game designers who get very focused on a particular idea. Sometimes it works great, you just make the idea, it comes out, it's a great game. Sometimes people can get a little stuck on something. It's not as exciting anymore. So this ideation, this method of mind mapping to game idea, riffing, creating something. We don't have a prototype yet. It's not a game. I wouldn't say like, hey, I made a game here, because I think it's really important to get to the step of actually physically prototyping, and then of course play testing is very important. This could be a terrible game. I can get it in front of somebody and everybody might hate it. So it's important to actually do that extra step of putting the game in front of people. But as an exercise, this is great. I'm actually kind of excited about this. Definitely going to add it to my list of things to work on in the future, which is growing a lot from these game design streams. So I have to start to get some of these out, see if I can work out a way to do a prototyping stream as well. So we can take some of these ideas, get them into physical form, and get them ready for playtesting as well. So this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. I do this every week, Tuesdays, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Can follow me on Twitter at Emma Larkins if you want to get more information about game design, and watch these streams. If you missed the beginning, you can watch this on twitch.tv/Emma Larkins. You can also watch the replays on YouTube if you want to see the whole design process start to a pretty polished game design concept that we have here. Thanks again for joining, and looking forward to catching you next time. Will do.